Hello there! Today I'm reacting to Geography Now China 中国. This is gonna be incredible. The video, unfortunately, is only 19.49 seconds long. This is not even gonna scratch the surface of China, but still, come on. Let's appreciate it, and maybe in the future we're gonna check out more videos to learn more about your beautiful country, or this beautiful country. I don't know where you come from.
This episode is brought to you by 24houranswers.com.
大家好，中国的大湖泊有悠久的历史和文化。虽然在这个视频中我不能涉及到它的全部，但我会尽量向大家解释。OK， 好了。
That wasn't too bad, actually, right? I mean, his tones weren't too great, but was understandable, right? I mean, I can speak somehow Chinese. Of course, my tones are all fucked up as well, but that wasn't too bad. I don't know if he just memorized the script and then repeated it, or if he actually speaks Chinese. Let me know in the comments if you know. I mean, this guy is full of surprises. That was pretty good, actually.
行，我们开始吧。
It's time to learn geography now!
Hey everyone, I'm your host Barbie. China, 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 or the People's Republic of China. Everybody knows something about this place and everybody has something to say about it.
My new chambers made in China. We play ping pong ball made in China. She said she didn't love me.
Now let's see what the flag has to say about itself.
Oh, made in China. Oh, that was too loud.
The flag is a simple red banner with 5 yellow stars in the upper hoist or canton corner, a large star surrounded by 4 smaller ones in a semicircular pattern to the right. According to the governmental interpretation, the red background symbolizes the revolution and the 5 stars were made yellow to radiate against the red. The stars represent unity of the Chinese people under the leadership of the Communist Party of China. The larger star symbolizes the Communist Party of China, and the 4 smaller stars that surround the big star symbolize the 4 social classes: the working class, the peasantry, the urban petite bourgeoisie, and the national bourgeoisie.
I had no idea. This is so cool.
Well, that was pretty easy. Unfortunately, that will be the only easy part of this video. Let's get messy in... Okay, geographers, get your popcorn and notebooks because this is where things are going to get really complicated, messy, and dramatic and confusing.
This is why I watch Geography Now!
First of all, mainland China is located in and dominates the heart of East Asia. At over 22,000 kilometers, it has the world's longest combined land border with 14 other countries. The country spans all the way from the Taklamakan Desert to the coast of Fujian. Depending on your method of measurement, China could either be the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th largest country in the world by total area. If you include all of the water territories, Canada is the 2nd, even though China has slightly more landmass, and if you include Alaska, Hawaii, and all the official territories, the US is slightly larger than China, but if China's disputed and confusing territories are all included, then China is a little bit larger. Yeah, I know, it's only been a couple of minutes
that
and I'm already
animation
making it
was
look like...
amazing.
Speaking of territories, let's stick our hands in the first layer of mud. China has some of the most complex administrative divisions in the world, and it all has to do with certain types of people and the rise of the 20th century. First of all, the country is divided into 22 official provinces, but then we get to the subdivisions. China also has 5 autonomous regions, 4 municipalities, and 2 special administrative regions that mostly self-govern themselves. First, let's talk about the autonomous regions. They are Guangxi, Tibet, Xinjiang, Ningxia, and Inner Mongolia. The strange thing is that each of these regions has incredibly distinct and contrasting cultural traits that differ from the rest of Han-dominated Chinese culture.
Wait, so actually Inner Mongolia or Xinjiang are the biggest ones, no? I mean, Tibet is pretty huge as well. Each of these regions are they're very debatable, right? I mean, the Dalai Lama, we all know about the Dalai Lama. Xinjiang, we all know about the Uyghur people. So yeah, I don't want to get too political with this one. I just want to know informations about these places. Let me know more about it.
Because of the minority prevalency in these areas, they have kind of like a weird legislative membrane in which they are still under full sovereignty of China, but have extra special rights that don't apply to the rest of the provinces. Then we hit the municipalities. These are like the complete opposite of autonomous regions because they hold pretty much the highest governmental administrative classification in the country. And even though they are cities, they hold provincial status. In short, these guys are like the big shots of China, and they are the capital Beijing, Tianjin, Shanghai, and Chongqing. Yeah, try saying that 5 times fast. Beijing, Tianjin, Shanghai, Chongqing.
I definitely want to make a reaction video to Chongqing. I watched an Italian YouTuber that traveled to China, in the past year, and he went to Chongqing and he showed that there's an actual train or a metro, I don't remember right now, that goes inside the building. It's pretty crazy. And also you have like a square on top of a building. I mean, such an interesting city. I want to know more about it.
Furthermore, we have two special administrative regions that kind of self-govern themselves, but they all kind of fall under Chinese sovereignty. They are Hong Kong and Macau. CGP Great does an amazing video explaining the whole scenario on this, but I'll try to summarize it in the quickest way I can. These places used to be operated by the British and Portuguese until they were ceded back to China back in 1997 and 1999 respectively, and have a weird one country, two systems policy, even though it should be three systems. But hey, each of these areas has their own passports, currency, language, and even government. Then you have the strange 6 economic zones, which even though they do not have their own autonomy, they have flexible government regulation and free market policies that allow them to manage business transactions in a more liberal manner.
Yeah, that is Shenzhen and the others. No?
These zones are cities along the coast and the entire island region of Hainan, otherwise known as the Hawaii of China. Ha! Thought that was heavy? Now things are gonna get really ugly. Now, if there's one thing China knows how to do, it's getting people's attention. And not in a, hey guys, look at me type of way, but more of like a, hey guys, look at me kind of way. And one way they get attention is by making territory disputes. Let's just get the biggest one off of our chests. Taiwan.
Hey! It's called Chinese Taipei.
Taiwan is in a weird jurisdiction limbo with China because both sides kind of technically claim sovereignty over the other. As in, mainland China claims they own Taiwan, yet Taiwan believes ultimately that they are the sole proprietor of the entire mainland as well. It all had to do with the Chinese Civil War and the opposing political parties, yada yada yada. The Communist Party took over the mainland and the Nationalist Party took over Taiwan. Now we go inland. As we already mentioned in the Bhutan video, China has 2 disputed regions with them. Then we get to India. Sometimes China and India are like 2 monstrous titans slamming into each other at high velocity. It's very difficult to really approach this topic without somebody getting angry or upset, so I'm just gonna report the plain and simple claims as they stand and you make the decisions, okay? That way the worst that you can do is say, Geography Now, although not directly advocating, mentioned claims to one side of an argument that I do not agree with. In the east, we reach Arunachal Pradesh, which is to this day pretty much a state of India. However, China still believes it is part of South Tibet. In the Uttarakhand area by Tibet, you have the Niti Pass by Chamoli and the valley of Jadganga. In Pradesh, you have the Rayopurgil Mountains and the Spiti River Valley. And finally, we reach Jammu and Kashmir, aka the most messed up no man's land in the entire planet. Here, China lays claim to the Shaksgam Valley, the Fukche Valley, the mouth of the river by Chumar, and the largest chunk of highlands, the Aksai Chin region, which Chinese National Highway 219 passes through. In addition, further up north, pretty much all of Tajikistan's southeast border with China is disputed. And then we reach the Spratly Islands! Spratly Islands, islands.
What are the
Who
Spratly
will own
Islands?
you now? I don't know! In the South China Sea, things get really messy. Imagine, if you will, a
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot about that actually in the past years, that it was highly contended between that they said that China is trying to claim more and more of these islands on the Chinese Sea, right?
bunch of people walking towards each other, each one on their phones looking at pictures of Bob Saget, and then suddenly they all bump into each other and notice a pile of money on the ground right at their feet. They drop their phones and immediately lunge for the pile, disagreeing on whose money is whose and how much belongs to which person. That's the Spratly Islands. Essentially, these islands are claimed by 5 separate countries in the area, 6 if you consider
Philippines,
Taiwan
no?
sovereign, and the whole deal is just an enormous mess of convoluted claim squabbling. This is what the Philippines claims, this is Vietnam's, Brunei's, Malaysia's, and then China just kind of does.
Yeah, I do remember something like that. I don't remember if I reacted to another video in my other channel in the past or if I watched some news or something like that.
This. Basically, the
But I do
Spratlys
remember
are an
that.
international battle royale, and when one side doesn't really pay attention to one island that they claim, another side sweeps in and builds a military station. It gets ugly sometimes. Oh yeah, and there's a cluster of rocks called the Diaoyu or the Senkaku Islands that both China and Japan both think is theirs. Alright, that's it! Kind of. I mean, we didn't really talk about the whole North Korea thing and how the entire country operates under one time zone, but we'll just have to save that for a social media comment war. In the meantime, we gotta get this gravy train rolling.
Actually, it's pretty cool also. I want to share this and then I'm gonna let the video play. Still the same Italian YouTuber that I told you that he traveled to China before. Also, he went to North Korea, and in order to get inside North Korea, he went to a neighboring province that was really cool. It was very beautiful, bordering North Korea. That was wow. That was really incredible. And from there, they took a bus and went inside North Korea with other YouTubers to film videos. It was really amazing. Oh my god, there's so much about China that most people don't know. Me first, because I've never been there, but I definitely want to.
China is a big country, so naturally you're gonna get deep geographic divisions all over, but in general, if you look at China from space, you'll notice that the east is significantly greener than that of the arid, rocky north and west. Situated right on the eastern third of the Eurasian landmass, China's inner and coastal domain is kind of shielded by the arid, sparsely populated highlands in the southwest, west, and north, encapsulating the fertile lowlands inside. I like to call this the Chinese shield.
Nobody's gonna touch my plants.
This is partially why it took Europeans so long to develop solid ties and interactions with the East. I mean, sure, the Silk Road had existed for centuries prior, but crossing all the mountains and deserts and rocky paths was less favorable to sea exploration for them. And by the way, no, Marco Polo did not bring the concept of pasta to Italy by bringing back Chinese noodles from his travels. Pasta had already existed in the Mediterranean for centuries prior to the excursion. China has a vast domain of biodiversity and climate. The west and north will be radically different from the coast and south. So let's start with the inland and coast. On
I mean, that makes sense.
climate,
So, wait.
the west and north will be radically different from the coast and south. So let's start with the
So yeah, now that I'm looking at the map of China, I think that in the western part of China, it shouldn't be very populated, right? It's very sparsely populated. All the population is basically on this area, the northeast and the central and eastern part of China. Am I mistaken? I mean, probably it's going to tell it later.
inland and coast. On the east side of China and the coasts, you have the heavily populated alluvial plains that are generally flat with numerous spots for shipping and harbors, and beaches with the cool looking ones like Panjin.
Wow! Oh my god, I would never go to this beach. What the hell? There's too many people.
Red Beach that blossoms every autumn. Head
What? Red Beach?
a little bit north up to the provinces of Jilin and Heilongjiang and half of Inner Mongolia.
Heilongjiang, that's a Harbin, no? Capital. Harbin.
Along the borders of Russia and North Korea, and you hit the coldest spot in all of China. In fact, every year the city of Harbin, named the Ice City, has a huge ice sculpting festival that draws in millions of tourists in the
so
winter
cool.
months. Fun fact, this general area of China was commonly referred to as Manchuria in the past, named after the Manchu people, which is where the Fu Manchu mustache gets its name from, which is where I get back to the video. Head a little east and you reach the rest of the Inner Mongolian Autonomous Region, which is dominated by the Mongolian Plateau, which is a highland consisting of dry steppes, hills, and yes, the Gobi Desert. Which, fun side note, is where all those beautiful caravan raiding and "give me back my home or I will kill you" chasing scenes from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon were filmed. Head a little west and things get a little more intense. Congratulations, you've reached the largest subdivision in China, the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. This is basically the Wild West of China. At over 1.5 million square kilometers, only about 5% of the area is fit for human habitation. This area is strange, rocky, rugged,
Look at
mountainous,
that.
and loaded with oil, making it China's largest gas-producing region. Then you head a little south and you reach the strange Taklamakan Desert, or the Cold Desert. This huge basin of
Cold
shifting sand
desert.
dunes is almost completely surrounded by the snow-capped mountains, trapping in the frigid winds. However, it still lies in the rain shadow zone, so it rarely receives any precipitation. However, the funny thing is, if you look closely, you can see the ice melt from the Tian Shan and Kunlun mountains in the north and south, feeding into the valleys below by the desert until they create a dry riverbed that looks like a strange Angelina Jolie forehead vein in the desert.
What
Head
the
south,
hell?
and then we reach the most notable autonomous region, the Tibetan Plateau. As the highest region on Earth with an
Look
average
at
elevation
that.
of nearly 5,000 meters, 16,000
So
feet, this
beautiful.
area is situated on the Himalayan mountains, the tallest mountain range on the planet, and the tallest mountain in the world, Mount Everest, straddles the border with Nepal. The funny thing is, the Tibetan Plateau, and to some extent the Qinghai province, is so high that the snowmelt runoff doesn't really have much to go in the arid north. So it just kind of flows into the empty crevices, creating China's largest network of freshwater lakes, speckled throughout the entire area, including the largest lake in China, Qinghai Lake. Many speculate that these are actually the sources of many of the major rivers in China, including the Yellow and Yangtze. Then we get to the southeast by the provinces of Yunnan, Guangxi, and Guangdong. As the warmest regions in the country, these areas are home to some of the most picturesque rock forest and eroded mountain landscapes.
Oh, those are the Dragon Ball mountains, right?
The terraced rice paddies that have literally usurped the entire
So
surface
cool.
area of hills and mountains. This is also the only place where you can find the creepy snub-nosed monkey. When you head inland, you reach the rural areas and you can encounter the vast network of rivers and creeks that irrigate the endless crop fields that never end, with the occasional pine and bamboo forest. Here's where we have to address a little bit of reality. Yes, China is loaded with beautiful scenery unmatched
So
anywhere else
beautiful.
in the world. I mean, the setting for Avatar was inspired by the Zhangjiajie National Park. However, just like any other major state, they do have their land controversies. China has been trying really hard to crack down on its poaching, and especially against the endangered species like the black-necked crane, the golden monkey, and of course, the iconic mascot of the nation, the giant panda bear. And on top of that, China has quite a pollution problem. The Chinese Ministry of Health has stated that industrial pollution has made cancer China's leading cause of death. This is both attributed to the air and land pollution. They've tried their best to combat the issue with instituting strict regulations on fines and bans, but with the population as big as China, it's proven incredibly difficult to manage
Okay, this video was uploaded 9 years ago. I think now the situation is better in terms of pollution in China, right?
contamination maintenance. Now let's talk about the most controversial aspect of China, the
Demographics.
Alright, here we go. I'm probably not going to feel this nervous until we get to the Israel video. Or the country that must not be named. Let's talk about the people of China. With a population around 1.4 billion people, China is the world's most populous country with around 19% of the entire world's population.
Not anymore
About
now.
1 out of every 5 people on the planet is Chinese. Let me just emphasize exactly how big that is. In China, they have traffic jams that can last not only hours, but days on 50-lane highways. In China, even if you are 1 in a million, there are still 1,400 people exactly just like you.
But my mom thinks I'm cool.
Okay, that's great. Seriously though, China is packed. However, with the colossal population comes an endlessly broad spectrum of culture, traditions, people groups, customs, and lifestyles. China officially recognizes about 56 different ethnic people groups that inhabit the entire country. At about 90%, the largest majority of the population identifies as Han Chinese, and the remainder of the population typically falls within one of the many ethnic groups and the subdivision groups. The largest ones being the Zhuang, the Hui, the Manchu, and the Uyghur. Funny little side note, there are actually about twice as many Mongols living in China than there are actually in Mongolia itself. The interesting thing is that they actually write in the traditional vertical Mongol script that has all but been abandoned from regular Mongolia since the introduction of the Cyrillic alphabet in the 40s. You can even
What? Mongolia uses the Cyrillic alphabet. It's crazy.
find the traditional characters on street signs and stores in the region. When it comes to the population, you need to know about the imaginary Heihe Tengchong line. This is a line drawn diagonally from the northern city of Heihe all the way to Tengchong in the south, and about 94% of the entire country's population lives east of this line.
Oh, okay, so I was right. I was right with my assumption. Wow, that's crazy.
The official language of China is Mandarin or Putonghua. However, like mentioned before, regional languages exist and they're even allowed to publish and utilize their own scripts in public. You can find the largest linguistic contrast in the autonomous regions. The Zhuang language is spoken in the Guangxi Autonomous Region and is actually closer to the Thai and Lao languages with some mutual understanding. The only problem is that it's written in the Latin alphabet. Just like we mentioned in the Bhutan video, the Tibetan language is closer to the Bhutanese Dzongga language and is written with the Tibetan syllabary, which is actually closer to the scripts found in India and Nepal. The Uyghurs of the north write in an Arabic-based writing system, and it's crazy because these people are actually the least Chinese-looking people in all of China, as they are Turkic in their heritage, yet they still have Chinese citizenship, and most are able to at least hold a conversation in Mandarin as a second language. Then, of course, we get to one of the most widely known dialects, Cantonese, spoken
Oh, Cantonese. Oh, this is my god, Guangdonghua, no?
mostly in the south in the Guangdong province, as well as Hong Kong and Macau, propagated worldwide through the help of famous
Sorry, I don't know how to read too many Chinese characters. I need to stop being lazy and learn
Hong
more.
Kong cinema and television. One thing you need to understand is that many of these dialects are completely unintelligible to Mandarin. For example, in Mandarin, you might say 很高兴见到你, but in Cantonese, you would say 好高興認識你. In Mandarin,
Oh my
是久
God,
見
so
在哪
different.
裡? But in Cantonese,
Wait, okay, that was terrible.
Cantonese, you would say 好高興認識你. In Mandarin, 是久見在哪裡?
西球间. No, wait, okay. 西球间在哪里? Okay, my Chinese sucks as well, so I cannot be saying anything.
But in Cantonese, 四手間喺邊度啊? See, they don't sound anything alike. Well, they don't sound like no nothing to me either way, so it don't matter to me. Here, go play with this ball. The weird thing is, they all still use the same Chinese character writing system, so even if you don't understand each other, you can still communicate with writing. Fun little side note, the same thing even sometimes applies for Japan, as they use the kanji writing system, which is made up of Chinese characters all over. Culture-wise, there is too much to cover, and I won't be able to address everything, but basically the Chinese have an incredibly long history of vibrant
Also Korean, if I'm not mistaken, they use some Chinese characters in their language from time to time, no?
exuberating customs, traditions, rituals, dynasties, discoveries, inventions, wars, alliances, art, building, food, apparel, policies, and beliefs. And the list goes on and on. To even attempt to scratch the surface, we would have to make over 100 episodes. One thing that kind of is universal, though,
Even
is that
more.
the Chinese have a very hard-working, diligent type of social construct that looms over the entire population. Students can typically spend about 12 hours a day on schoolwork and studying in order to pass college entrance exams, which is a huge deal. Oh, and they absolutely love practicing
Oh my god, what is it called? Oh my god, I forgot the name. What is the name of the entrance exam? The cow something. Maybe we'll come back to it.
Practicing English. In fact, there are actually more people in China that speak English as a second language than there are in the UK. Some children that show signs of being gifted in certain academic, athletic, and artistic prowess are even selected by the state to undergo training at specific academies that cater towards targeting and honing those skills. Speaking of which, the country operates under a one-party socialist state.
But I thought China was communist!
Not really. I mean, yes, the ruling party is called the Communist Party, and they do endorse some of the democratic centralist principles that Lenin proposed, and they do advocate some semi-communist ideologies, but in all reasonable definitions, China is not a full-on communist country. After the 70s, policies were relaxed and China opened up a more free market economy. Nonetheless, there are still restrictions on press, access to the internet, although VPNs and proxy servers are not uncommon to avoid that problem, freedom of assembly, and even freedom of religion. Speaking of which, China has an interesting faith-based background. Although most people in the country are generally irreligious or adhere to traditional faiths and ideologies like Confucianism and Taoism, there are still a surprisingly solid community of people that have faith backgrounds. Islam can be mostly found in the west in the Xinjiang and Ningxia areas. Buddhism is more prevalent in the south, where you can find massive Buddha statues like the ones carved in the cliff of Leshan. But then you get this weird anomaly and realize there's a huge influx of Christians that suddenly just came out of nowhere.
Cool.
China has the world's fastest growing Christian population, and demographers speculate that somewhere around 150 to 200 million people identify as Christians in China. It is soon projected that in less than 15 years, China will be the world's largest Christian nation. Sociologists attribute this sudden rapid growth simply to conversion, since the previously instated one-child policy discredits the possibility of big families. Speaking of which, that whole one-child policy thing was revoked in 2015, and now they have a two-child policy. In a nutshell, when it comes to people, China is a colossal behemoth to be reckoned with. You can't deny that China sticks out like a sore thumb on the world stage. Now let's see what role they play on that stage. Okay, so here's the deal. We all know that China is huge. In terms of nominal GDP, China has the second largest economy in the world after the US. They are the world's largest exporter, trade nation, oil importer, and henceforth,
isn't it also the second? No, wait. Russia is the second strongest military in the world. And then the third must be China, no?
it's not hard to really conclude that China has a lot of connections. China has diplomatic relations with almost every single country in the world, minus a few that either never really had the time to meet up, or the few that recognize Taiwan's sovereignty over the People's Republic, which doesn't really
Wait, what? Really? Wow, Sao Tome and Principe recognizes Taiwan as its own country. I mean, it makes no sense. Oh, but wait. Okay, it actually makes sense because Sao Tome and Principe was a former Portuguese colony, and Portuguese colonized Taiwan before, or they discovered Taiwan before. That's why it was called the Island of Formosa. And in Sao Tome and Principe was a Portuguese colony. They speak Portuguese. I'm guessing that's the reason. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you have any idea why that is.
well with them. Nonetheless, trying to analyze China's diplomatic relations is like one big messed up chess game that makes no sense. One thing that we can start with is the BRICS nations. BRICS being the acronym for the Association of the Five National
Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, I guess.
emerging economies: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. These five countries have developed an alliance based on bilateral relations and mutual benefit agreements. One misconception that a lot of people have is that China and India do not get along. Yes, in the 60s there was a Sino-Indian war, and yes, the border disputes are all kind of still in effect, but nonetheless, China and India have been operating in diplomatic measures for decades. They are heavily
I mean, even China and Russia is not that it gets along really well, right? I mean, but still, come on, those are alliances. Even in the past, if you read any historical book, all the alliances that you will see in Europe, they all hated each other. But since they were allied, they were forced to join in forces or to trade. So yeah, doesn't mean that alliances makes you friends with the other country, of course, but that's all political stuff anyway. The people from the country don't really reflect political views or anything like that. Come on.
dependent on each other's trade and business, and after a few high-level visits from the former president Jiang Zemin in the 90s, tensions have eased off quite a bit. The only problem is that both countries are the biggest investors in Africa, so that kind of puts a little bit of competition in the bucket. When it comes to Africa, China was kind of like, Africa is like a really big place with a lot of stuff we could use with a lot of diplomatic confusion. So maybe we should step in as the new guys and how to deal with these Africans. To this day, China has really been keeping their eyes on sub-Saharan Africa, specifically in places like South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Angola. South Africa and Angola being the largest African trading partners with China. The problem, though, is that China is kind of far and doesn't really have a coast on the Indian Ocean for shipment from Africa, so that's where Pakistan comes in. Pakistan has actually been one of the closest friends and allies of China since the beginning of the economic reform period. Not only do they offer China access to the Indian Ocean from the ports of Gwadar, they frequently collaborate on energy, technology, and even military agreements, which kind of makes sense in case of tensions ever rose with India ever again. Funny enough, Israel is also a close ally of China as well. During World War II, Shanghai took in many Jewish refugees, and Israel was the first country in the Middle East to recognize the PRC as the legitimate government of China, which is weird because China also has ties to Iran and many other nations in the Middle East that could care less for Israel. In fact, trade between China and the Middle East goes...
Bro, oh my god, I'm getting a headache now just to think about the situation that the Chinese government might be in right now, because this video is fairly old. 9 years ago was uploaded. Right now, with all the tensions that there are going on in Israel, between Israel, Iran, Pakistan, India, oh my god, I don't know how they're gonna pick sides or whatever. This is gonna, oh my god, wow. It's already so fucked up right now, the situation in Europe, but for China, that is going on all in their doorstep. Oh my god, this is, wow. That's really something.
Way back millennia all the way to the Silk Road, so it's nothing new for them. Russia is probably the closest European ally, even though the Sino-Soviet split in the 60s kind of caused a little bit of dissension, but nonetheless the two have learned to kind of shrug it off and join forces again. Russia to this day is also the largest oil exporter to China, and there's even a small community of Russians living in China, mostly in Harbin in the north. Which is weird again because China's relations with the US are pretty crucial too. The US is China's largest trade partner and plays a pivotal role in China's revenue input. They are friends with both North and South Korea. However, with all the nuke action going on, China has been less and less supportive of North Korea and has even threatened to impose sanctions against them. And that's not even half of it. If you want the whole story, go talk to a Chinese person because we are out of time. In conclusion, since the beginning of its conception, China has
I want to know from you guys, huh? Drop a comment, definitely.
always been able to show the world that it knows how to make you know about it. And now that you know about it, you have no idea how much you still need to know. Stay tuned and come be with Colombia. No. Hey Geography peeps, so Geography Now just got its first sponsor, 24houranswers.com. This is probably the best homework help and tutoring website ever. If you're in college or if you're a grad student or whatever, these people are smart, they're
Okay guys, that was it for today's video. It was really incredible. I'm guessing very controversial. I always try to react to these videos keeping an open mind. I don't want to share political views or anything. I always try to respect everyone and everything. So I hope I didn't say anything wrong. If I did, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, I just want to do this disclaimer before ending the video. Should have probably done that at the beginning, but hey. So yeah, that was very interesting. I learned a lot. Definitely made me want to learn more Chinese. Thank you so much for watching the video. Share your thoughts in the comment section. See you soon.